Welcome in Food for Thought. Today we're recording our thoughts on nothingness. And I have two special guests today, Karl and Kevin. Karl, why did you think about nothingness?
I guess it came to me, through Douglas Harding's Headless Way exercises. He's got this, or he calls them experiments. I'm supposed to examine my experience to find out what's really going on. It's his version of Vipassana. And I noticed that I've got two ways of interacting with the world. One in which I'm in the world, and that's where I have a shared consensus reality, and I'm able to pay taxes and interact with people. And this other way where the world is inside of me. If I identify with the negative or the non-information carrying parts of my senses. And I found that when I carried out his experiments, I would always find that the phenomenology of my experience was happening in a field of nothingness. And that when I identified it as that nothingness, that everything would make sense. Everything took its proper place in my universe, in how things seemed.
Explanation of nothingness. Kevin, how do you see it?
The sense I have of it is, so I've kind of played around with some of Douglas Harding's practices or exercises through, I think, the Waking Up app. I think Richard Lang has that approach, but I didn't actually take to that very directly, and I found a different framing. I forgot what her name was, but and it's in the same app, but she had I think she calls it the spectrum of awareness, and that language, maybe I should step back. So every time we use language, this is the kind of problem, right, of language and experience. It's always a step away from the direct immediacy of the thing. And so that caveat aside, the language I found helpful to try to engage with this was, there's awareness of awareness, or the space of experience, or I think two other ways she frames it is that which knows, or that which is. And I think if I hadn't meditated, that would just sound like a bunch of gibberish to me. And in some sense kind of still does, because some of the language doesn't quite map on to how I experience it. But I guess I can give a concrete example that I talked with Karl about yesterday, where a few weeks ago I was trying to do a walking meditation with the same app, and I remember there was a moment when a leaf, fell onto the sidewalk and it hit the ground, and there's a sound that was made from the leaf hitting the ground, and there was an immediate kind of flip of oh wait, that visual space and that sound space are actually in the same space, and they kind of they were able to the distinction between those modes of experience of hearing and seeing was completely just kind of dissolved, and but just for a split second. And as soon as it happened, I was like, wait, what? And then my kind of language started coming back online, wait, what the fuck? And then it was oh, okay, wait, okay. As soon as that happened, it snapped me out of that kind of that moment. But so I think, as far as I can tell, I think that's what stuff like Vipassana and this headless way are trying to do, is get people to consistently, or at least more often, have access to that kind of experience. Yeah, that's probably the best I can do for now.
So if I understand correctly, so nothingness is like cleanness of perspective. When we come into observing the world from the space of absolute emptiness, we kind of take in with the freshness of experience everything that happens, to the point of being able to take apart sound from the visual. Is that the way that nothingness kind of enhances our perception?
Well, I think, I mean, another way to frame it, and I think these are two sides of the same coin, is like some people might call it like complete unity. Some people might call it nothingness, but I think those are actually the same thing from different sides or different like takes on it. Maybe different directions or something. I don't know what the right language is. So anyways, I'll stop there.
No, that's interesting. What do you think, Karl?
Yeah, that tracks for me. Like from it seems like from a left brain perspective, it seems like from a left brain perspective, there are individual things. I'm separate from the world, and from a right brain perspective, everything just is, and everything is happening in the context of nothingness. Like everything I could point to, like every sound. If I listen to a sound, I realize that in my auditory field, there's room for more sound. And that room for more sound is nothing, that potential. And if I make that little flip, if I just consider, oh, so there's actually way more nothingness than there are things in that nothingness. Like the nothingness, like if it's nothingness, then it has no characteristics. It doesn't have a beginning or an end. It's eternal and it's infinite. And so the nothingness of silence, if it's infinite, it also is the nothingness of the emptiness that my body sensations are in. And Andrew Huberman mentions, he's talking to Lex Friedman. And one of my favorite quotes is, he says, the space, the shape of your face that I'm experiencing right now, there is no shape like that in my brain. The contours of your face, that is not represented in my brain, and yet I am seeing it. So it's like this. What if we were all in a? What if this use the imaginal that Vervaeke talks about? What if this is actually the true state of things? Is that we are all in this dark theater. Like it's completely dark. You can't see anything. Like you look over that way, and as far as you can see nothing because it's blackness. But we're all looking at a screen. But we all see something different because it's a holographic screen. And so you and I, as we're having a conversation, we can argue about all the things on that screen. I see this. No, I see this. No, I see this. I see this. But then when we go like, okay, wait a second. Let's maybe we're all just insane. Maybe there's no way we can relate to each other. Okay, is everybody seeing a screen? and so we can all ask each other, like as I look at you on this screen and I examine my visual field and I allow my awareness to go to the peripherals of my vision. That means I think what Vervaeke is going to call it is horizontal, the horizon of my vision. That's as far as I can see anything. But my attention, my awareness can go beyond the horizon of my vision. It has a shape. My visual field has a shape. If I can see,
what do you mean by the shape? That's not
well, it's mine. Please examine yours as I examine mine. It seems like there's a top and a bottom and a left and a right to my field of vision. I can look all the way over to the left, and then there's no more information. Is that how you guys experience it? Like if you keep your eyes focused on one spot, and just to let your awareness go to the left or the right without moving your eyes, it seems like there's a shape to my vision. It's one big ball of light.
So what happens whenever you close your eyes? Do you still see that shape?
That's a really interesting question. I think I don't have the capability of tying that into where I'm wondering if we can go together. Like one thing I want to point out is that I see one ball of light, so to speak. It's kind of oval. Is that how you guys experience it? There's like an oval ball of light that all this shape and color are happening in?
I don't see the shape. To me, it's everything beyond my sight, my immediate attention or focus, let's say, is a fog.
Is
Just
a fog.
Yes, that's for me. How about you, Kevin?
I think I like that metaphor because if I close my eyes and if I try to do the same thing, because I think I get like if I'm actually looking at the sensation in my visual field, and for me, I have glasses, so yeah, there's like this kind of shape that kind of imposes itself on the field, and then like if I think about what you're saying, like it's like there's like kind of a top, like cuts off around here, like cuts off around there, cuts off around there,
Cuts
but
off.
I don't like see that as a shape. Like I don't feel like I experience that as a shape per se. It's it's kind of like this openness, and things go into it and leave it, but it feels like trying to map it onto a notion of shape is somehow bringing in like a conception of it that I don't, at least for me, doesn't map onto my experience of it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, aside from the shape, I just want to point out that it seems like you guys have each have two eyes that you're looking out of. So, but I only see one ball of light. Or I only see one field of vision that things are coming in and out of. Either way, even if shape doesn't work.
Yeah.
So where is that field of vision? Because I have two eyes.
I just did a practice, and the moment I close one or the other, it seems like that ball of vision is full and straight, but each time I would close the eye, the vision would cut shorter, like it would be like shoot or shoot, like from each side depending on what eye I just closed. But beyond that is still a fog. For some reason, like it's not non-existent, it exists but as a fog, like the same way as if something unilluminated would be around somehow.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember doing this as a kid, and I never thought to do it like now, right? Like ever having some experience with some meditation. But like there's a sense in which, and like I think it's easier to do this if you have like some light source on your eyelids, where like and actually, I think you can do it with your eyes open too. Like whenever you kind of defocus your eyes, right? And like so like right now, I'm looking at like the corner of my laptop, right? And I'm able to kind of split my vision to where like, now part of my eye is on that corner, and my other eye is like focused on something else, right? So it kind of creates two kind of non-overlapping, right? That whenever you kind of focus on something far away, right, while you're looking at something up close. And whenever I do that, like I can move between like, okay, I can move between the corner of my laptop, right, and the wall behind it. And kind of like and I see those are both happening at the same time. Now, I think I can also do that thanks to what Carl was just mentioning. When I close my left eye, I can kind of focus on that that kind of darkness that comes whenever you close your eye, as opposed to what's in my open eye field of vision. I don't know what to make of that, but that's just something I think is curious. Like and if I do that, it's like I don't think, yeah, it's like there's kind of like openness to it that doesn't feel like it has a bound. It just feels like in the same way, like, the place where my thoughts happen, it doesn't feel like there's an edge to my thoughts. It just feels like, oh, the thought just popped in. Oh, that thought went away. Oh, I forgot what I was doing. Or just like an emotion, right? It's like, oh, the emotion came to the space and now it's gone. But there's never like a clear distinction of like it came into, oh, there's the edge of it, right? It just came into the space and now it just left the space. Like there's no, does that make sense? I don't know if that's
it seems like there's a fuzziness to the peripheral,
yeah.
like where it fades out
Yeah.
into fog or into blackness or darkness or nothingness. Okay.
At least for me as well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just want to point out, like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That I have two eyes and one field of vision. That doesn't, I take it for granted, but that doesn't make any sense. It is as if, from my perspective, I'm in a dark or a foggy theater where I can see no thing around that, beyond that fuzzy periphery, the liminal. I can see nothing. I can see no thing. There's no, but there's just one screen I'm looking at. Where am I looking at that screen if I have two eyes? So this is the thing. And Andrew Huberman says, he's like, as he says it, he says, your face is not represented spatially in my head, in my brain. There's no place where there's a little screen with your face on it, but that's what I'm looking at.
Okay, so as you experiencing the nothingness of the vision, who narrates it? Who is the let's say awareness that judges what you see, the nothingness, who kind of evaluates a lot? This is nothingness. And by the way, like, why do you see one thing out of two eyes? Should not you see two things, like from left and right? Like, how does this work? Like, who is the thought behind your eyes? Like, how does this work? What I'm trying to like bring in is the dialogue inside, or like
well, that's an interesting, and that is where I'd like to go, but I wonder if, like Andrew Huberman, we haven't got our heads around that thing, this phenomenon that's happening right now. Like there's something really weird happening right now, and it seems like it's always happening, is that the world is being created out of these different spaces, and it seems like one space. And what Vipassana shows me is I can look behind that veil. I can look behind the the green curtain where the wizard is putting the world together for me, this world that I'm in. And when I look behind that veil and I examine my phenomenology, all of a sudden I see that the one who is having these thoughts is nothingness. That's the only constant. Everything changes. But what the most real that I notice is that nothingness. It's never changed. It's only my perception of it, like the hedgehog in that cartoon we were watching. It fears the fog. It fears the fog because of what might come out of it, what it expects to come out of it.
The potential.
And the potential. It fears chaos. It fears the owl that comes out of it and seems to understand the fog.
What is fearing? Like, what is the thing that is experiencing that?
That is, I'd say that's nothingness. I mean, that's what it seems like to me perceptually. Like if I examine who or what is watching the screen, it's the darkness that's watching the screen.
How would you describe that to someone who has had no practice in meditation?
I'd ask them to remember, to see if they can remember what it's like when they were children. They're in this world of fantasy that just merges with the consensus reality, and they go in and out of it, and they, maybe they're sitting there staring at the sky, and then they realize the fog or the nothing or that surrounds their field of the information carrying part of their field of vision is just as dark or just as fog as when they're in a dark room.
Yeah, I think, sorry, I want to build on that a little bit, because I think this is something that people can do normally, where like if you stare at a blue sky, you might notice there's like little kind of distortions in it, like little floaters in your eye, is what some people call them. And that's, I think, also in that same kind of field of vision. Am I right about that, Karl? Is that what you're pointing?
That's what I've noticed. Yeah. And if you pay attention, if you look at a blue sky, a bright blue sky, you can see. I've been told to look for, and I've seen tiny little white streaks going past, and those are, what I've been told is, those are white blood cells that you can see, but I ignore them because I got to pay taxes. I got to get busy in this consensus reality. And I ignore the actual phenomenology, what I'm actually seeing. My brain's like, that's not relevant. Don't realize it.
So why shouldn't we ignore it? That sounds like a very compelling reason not to.
That's a great, I love that question. Yeah. I find it useful to not ignore it because I get lost in fantasy. I think I know who I'm talking to. I think I know what you're going to say. I think, I know what you think about me. And that's all abstraction. And I can get caught up in that and lost in it. I think I know who I'm married to. And I think I know who I am. But when I examine my phenomenology, all that just goes away, and it breaks my ego. It breaks my idea of myself evaporates. And for a moment, I have a release from that bondage of being tied to my narrative. And in that next moment, there's a little room for grace to come in, and I can be recalibrated with the way things actually are, with the world as it's actually presented to me, not as I'm not, and I can let go of my prediction of it and get more in touch with what is actually being presented to me.
Okay, so maybe like let's because I think it might be helpful to use like a concrete example of like you're in traffic and that asshole, right? That fucking asshole, he just pulls in front of you, and you almost like
Clearly.
rear-end him, and it's just like,
Clearly.
you know, like who's this guy think he is, right? And then but then you can like if you can just like take a step back for like a second, if you can kind of
Mhm.
tap into the, oh wait a second, like I'm getting upset at this person, and like there's a space in which the experience is unfolding, then I can kind of like decouple,
Mhm.
like, you know, kind of that, you know, because I was really just like, you know, I was, you know, going through the state of rage and anger and like, I want to like follow this guy home and like maybe fuck up his car or something. It's like all these things, right, that you might actually like just have a deep, but then it's like there can be this moment, which is very difficult, I found to do this, but I think it can be done, where you can kind of like almost like snap out of it. It's like, whoa, wait, hold on. I'm doing this thing where I'm like totally buying into this thing. I'm like this whole narrative, this whole like set of perceptions that I'm constructing into this, you know, well, he is clearly the bad guy. I'm clearly justified, right, in anything I do to him. So you know, I'm just serving justice by like kicking his ass. Um,
Yeah.
but it's like I could be wrong about that, but it's like a way for me to realize I'm wrong about that is maybe to take the step of like of being aware of like,
The word detachment came to mind.
Mhm.
It's like nothingness is the way you detach from what is. So there is what is in the real world perceptually, and then when you kind of withdraw from it, detach from it, there is nothingness. There is this kind of potential, because you don't know. Nothingness is what you don't know what is there until you shine the light on it. Until you shine the light on it, until you clear it away, illuminate it, it's not yet happened. It's unknown. It's potential. So yeah, you can reach into that kind of, let's see what will happen when I will go into pure potential. And then as the road rage, and imagine if you could manifest things out of nothingness. So you're withdrawing into that, and then you start raining clowns on the road, just like out of nowhere. Clowns just raining because you just manifested like the random idea that came out of nothingness. And there, over there, every car rooftop just started blooming roses for no reason. And like, so nothingness is the idea of pure potential. It's the thought, but it's also kind of this wanderer. Am I getting it correctly, or am I just like escaping into
No,
visualization out
I
of
think
control?
that's it. And I would say that pure potential would be a conceptual way of thinking about nothingness. What the thing I want to distinguish is the perception of nothingness overpowers all concepts. Like when like there's nothing to argue with. Literally, there's nothing to talk about. In my left brain, there was a great illustration in the traffic. You know, that is the problem that I have, is, as Ian McGilchrist talks about it in The Master and His Emissary. That's the emissary coming back from the bounds of the kingdom to the master at the wheel and saying, this is the situation you are in. And my body, you know, you said, you know, like you get rage, your body reacts. That's the right brain. The right brain is fooled by the left brain. It's been said, this is how things are. And when I examine, well, how do I know that? It all falls apart. And I'm like, oh, that's right. I'm humbled. I don't know how things are. I can have wonder, not just curiosity where I'm trying to fit things into a puzzle. That's more left brain stuff, but I can wonder, what is the next thing that's going to happen? And the perceptual seems to overpower that over and over again.
which
I can
then
argue.
affords you to be in a space where you're like open to actually reassessing the situation. Maybe you're wrong, right? Or like there's maybe a better way to respond or react to it.
That's a practical advantage. And I think even beyond that, like with with meditation, there's all these advantages. Oh, I'm going to be nicer. I'm going to be more calm. I won't be as anxious. But the golden goose with the golden egg in it is just being able to appreciate in this moment that I am alive, that I'm in this mystery, that I'm in, like, this is the book of Genesis right now. There's the darkness, there's the light, there's the word bringing form out of chaos.
Now that we are at the book of Genesis,
Yeah.
guys, I would like to ask about the concept of the prayer
Prayer.
that Karl wanted to introduce.
Thank you. Yeah, so similar to me being able to, I'm talking to a story a lot of times, I'm talking to who I think you are and stuff, and that's necessary. I got to have that. But that mystery that I get, which kind of helps me, gives me access to dialogos of listening to the sound of your voice and going, where is that happening? Where am I actually experiencing that phenomenologically? And I have this sense of talking to the mystery behind your eyes. Intrapersonally, just in my mind space, with my inner voice, I can ask myself, I can say the words. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to say, guide me, in my voice, not evaluating who's saying it or who's listening to it. Although that is weird, because how can a radio transmit to itself? But that's more evaluation. But just to get to the phenomenology of that word in wherever that's happening. So I say, like, would you guys be against practicing just for 5 seconds? We'll just say, just close your eyes and say, guide me, and just ask yourself, if you had to swear in a court of law that the words guide me went through your head, how would you absolutely know that those words went through your head, those specific words? How long does it take for those words to go through your head?
Just a second, 1 second.
Yes, yes.
Guide me.
Yeah,
I hear it.
5 seconds, 5 seconds.
5 seconds, I would repeat it 5 times.
Yeah, okay, so let's do 15 seconds and repeat it over and over again, and just keep and contemplate, make a temple of the silence and observe that those words going through your head, and allow yourself to wonder, but not answer, where are they happening? Where are they coming from, and where are they going to, and what will is causing them to be? Just let me know when you're done.
I don't know if it's 15 seconds.
That sounds right.
I said it at least 15 times. So when you said temple, I just had I'm very visual, so I see thoughts in pictures, basically. Plus I hear it as well. In the moment I said guide me, and you said temple, so immediately there would be a kind of a very high roof over there, and I'm inside the temple, and the words guide me would be like those. So if I would say guide me, it would be almost a visual echo that would just bounce off the walls like a reverb up to the point, and then it would just melt through the rooftop of a temple, and then again, and then it would be taken 15 times, but the words would still hit the walls in a reverb and guide me, 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 like almost a musical sound. And kind of with that energy, kind of sort of light pulse, it would be pulsating and going.
Kevin, what was your experience?
Yeah, it's funny. I guess similar to Kara, because not everyone apparently can do this, right? Some people just think in pictures and have to translate to words. Some people think in, and by words I mean like the sounds, right? The inner, like you talking basically to yourself in your head. So I do both of those, but for me it was just the internal like monologue of like me hearing kind of like my internal voice, which if I think about it doesn't exactly sound like how my voice feels and sounds now to myself. But there's a voice there, and I could go through it, and I noticed that my and this isn't like true for everybody, but like I can feel my heartbeat quite like easily, especially if I just kind of quiet and sit still. And so I noticed that like the sensation of my heartbeat, and maybe it was also the sound of it, right, kind of reverberating in my headset, like that was in the same space as the words that guide me. And I was trying to do what you were suggesting of like, well, let me just like kind of notice like, is there some place those are coming from? And it didn't feel like there was some place, like there wasn't a direction to them. It was just like they just whoop, whoop, whoop. In the same way that like it isn't, I can think about my heart, and yeah, I can think about this concept. It's below my head, right? Da 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 da. But like, it doesn't feel like there's any distance there. It just like it's just boop, 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 boop.
Yeah.
And in that same kind of immediate way, the words were like that, right? And actually, I started to kind of time them with the heartbeat, which is interesting, because then it was kind of like made it easier to see they were kind of in the same space of experience, which I think is what we're sort of referring to as nothingness. Yeah.
Thank you guys both really interesting observations to me. And I want to point out that according to Andrew Huberman, or that following that, expanding on his idea, it seems like in my brain, that sound is not happening. The shape, the phenomenology that I'm experiencing is not happening in my brain, and I'm experiencing that. So there's a difference between my mind, where it's happening, and my brain. It happening in the brain, that's a theory. I don't actually experience that. That's not what I'm experiencing. That's all a theory I suggest, in one way of looking at it.
So maybe, because I think that, okay, so I think I'll unpack something that is maybe in line with what you're saying. So I think people in I don't know, modern culture, not all cultures have this. Actually, it seems to be different, but like, actually, I'll ask y'all two just to see what y'all do. Can you, so like maybe like step back a little bit so that way kind of your body's in the frame. Point to yourself. Karl, where would you like to point? Point to yourself.
Oh man, yes, right there. I don't. It seems like a trick question.
Well, I mean, like, so avoiding like.
So you don't
confusing.
point to yourself, but to the image of you. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that was a smart alecky response. I apologize.
Of course, like, but even if you point there, you point where you see yourself on a screen, but we will see you if you will point at you.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I point here, then I'm pointing, like where, like that's kind of a social, like you said, it's a social convention.
Because some people will point at their face, some people point at their chest, right?
Yeah, it really depends on the frame.
Yeah,
and the frame I was in when you asked was nothing. Like there's nothing to point to. Like if I'm identifying as the nothing, like I can point in this direction, but my finger doesn't land anywhere. Like I'm pointing at where I'm looking at the world from, but then I'm feeling it that down in my dantian. It seems like a living koan that you present.
Well, and I guess part of my reason for prompting I'll do that. So one, it surprised me, Karl, you gave you just pointed at the screen, because I have my self view off, so I didn't even think to like that would be a thing. But yeah, it's interesting because I think that's kind of what you're pointing at, where it's like it doesn't feel like experientially like I'm behind my face. That's there's like maybe an itch in my forehead. There's like a little bit of pressure on my nose from my glasses. There's like some pressure on my ears, right, from the headphones. But it doesn't feel, and like there's pressure on my lips when they move when I talk, and stuff in my mouth. But like none of that feels like like I'm right behind that. Like there's no like sense of like if I really pay attention to it. But I think there's a sense in different cultures where like you just get in this habit of like kind of referring to the space behind the place behind where your eyes are, which is where your brain is. And I think that's what you're pointing to, right? Where it's like it doesn't like it doesn't feel like it's in my brain. Now it could very well be like if we do a bunch of science and stuff like that. There might be some things in terms of nervous system and structures and spinal cord and all the stuff, right? But as a matter of experience, it is not like that doesn't give us access to the direct what we're calling phenomenology or like immediate experience. Am I in the right ballpark?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
I was thinking about how different the language is. Because you said point to myself, and I would point to the self and I would point it with a sound. Like I would like almost hit myself, so it would make both sound and the feeling. Plus I would do it at the place that is visual, even though I would point it to the heart, but the heart is lower, so I point it a bit higher so you guys could also see. So pointing to myself would involve three things. It's the kinesthetic, visual, and audio, basically. And it seems to me that myself was, in me at least, massively was attached to the actual physical body, where Karl is like, what is myself? Can you define myself? Am I the picture on the screen? Because this is the most obvious, because that's the only place I see myself right now. It's the screen. So Karl like goes for the screen. Like that's an interesting experiment, because you see, I did not even think that I am over there somewhere. Me is here, physical in a body. Whereby Karl is like, I'm a concept. My mind is outside. Like there is a perception of me, an image of me, and like that was really fascinating to me.
Well, as I point, like there's a way in which I pointed at it, and it was a smart alecky comment, and I apologize. I was trying to be playful, but there's a way. There is a way that is me.
Yeah.
Like if I identify with my experience, that's my experience. Like I'm experiencing these colors and these shapes. That's me. My idea of myself is this thing that experienced being born in Puerto Rico, coming here, getting here eventually to this live streaming, fortunately, and I really appreciate being here. But that's my ego. But the truth, like in Douglas Harding, he wrote a book called The Science of the First Person. And he says it's more everything that the science of the third person, Descartesian science, claims to do, the science of the first person actually does. It gets to the truth. It gets to the eternal truths, and it gets to what's happening right now. Like if I need the conceptual, I need to see myself as being in the world to have a conversation with you guys and to relate. But for that to not have an undue influence on me, where I take myself, my idea of myself too seriously, I want to just continually use these experiments to replace my idea of myself with my experience of myself. And that can only happen right now.
Right
When
now, you're the creator of your experience as well. So you can influence
Mhm.
from this moment right now what will happen next.
I, as awareness, am the agent and the arena.
Mm.
As if I identify with as awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I need to get clarification from Kara on like you're the creator of your experience. I think you mean that in a certain way. I just want to clarify, like, because I am not creating like the sound of the fan on my laptop, right? But there it is. It's just kind of happening in my field of experience and awareness. So what can you maybe unpack that a little more?
Okay. The sound of the fan and
Mm.
you're creator of your experience. I can turn it off. I
Mm.
can every moment I'm somebody who has the agency to change the experiences around me. Like
Okay.
the
Yeah.
same, like I cannot will clowns fall from the sky, right? But I can create an animation of it
Mm.
already. I can create an animation if I really want to. I can gather some people and it's like, guys, dress up as clowns. Let's jump
Parachute. Yep.
with parachutes. Yes, dressed as clowns and like surprise
Mm.
the people stuck in traffic. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do this one random thing. I have the capacity to do it, and I have crazy enough people to do it. Like I know people who would do it with me, but the thing is, do I really want to do it? So I'm the agent who decides what my next experience would be. So even if the fan, I can observe the fan, but I can will my power over the fan as well.
Well, but like there's like a limitation to it, right? Where it's like, 'cause I
Yeah,
think
because like there is something. If I want to turn off the fan from my computer, I would have to actually turn off my computer, and this I don't want to do, so I'm bound. I'm bound by the circumstances not to do it. So, but like there is this hierarchy. What do I choose? Do I choose to will my power over the fan, but sacrifice the actual experience of having a conversation with you guys? Or do I like, okay, I tolerate the fan? But I'm the agent who decides, basically.
I'd say it seems like that makes sense in the third person science and the third person way of looking at the world. From the first person science way of looking at the world, I would ask, where are you deciding to have the next thought that you have? Where's that decision happening?
At the back of my head, I can feel it emerging. Like I
So
actually like have
where are
such
you
a strong.
where are you deciding to have that emerge? When are you deciding to have that thought emerge?
Mm.
Oh, I don't know. I actually don't decide that. The thoughts, it seems like the thoughts themselves, they kind of randomly appear at the back of my head.
That's what I'm that's what I'm that's the level of awareness that I'm trying to bring myself to.
Is that
Is
closer to the arena? Like, because the arena is kind of also generating these certain.
That's the liminal. That's the liminal between agent and arena. That's the transjective.
Mm.
That's the subject and the object going, like that's right where the world is being created.
And by transjective, do you mean like there's like a relationship that's emerging from, so like me being the agent of, I don't know, like person who's talking with y'all, right? And the arena, right, is this kind of conversational space. And, me being a speaker or participant in a conversation, that's not in me, the agent, that's not in the arena. It's in this kind of
The relationship.
co-defining, co-emerging, which I think also pulls back to what Kara was pointing to, which is like I can do this thing where like I'm not just like it's not like I don't have any like say over what happens. I can kind of navigate this arena, and maybe I can say, you know what, like I need to like I don't know enough vocabulary. Let me go like study some stuff. Let me go build some skills, right? So that we can be a better kind of participant in this space. Yeah. So I don't know. I'll stop there. Yeah.
Where I want to ask, where's the sense of agency happening? There's a
Yeah.
sense of agency that I just assume, and if I notice that it's gone, then it's a problem,
Mm.
involuntarily. Then I'm like, wait a second, the world is chaos. I'm not in control. But I would say that sense of agency is a thing that is happening, and it's happening in that same no place that all these other things are happening in, and it's being John Vervaeke, I've heard him say a bunch of times, framing. You want to constantly be reframing. And what I'm suggesting is that this is my suggestion, and I'm not saying it's true, but I also can't see a way around it, is that the ultimate frame where I must stop framing. I have no frame outside of that nothingness. That is the frame. It's the frame of frames, which is another word for, some people have said God is the frame of frames. And I would say perception of nothing is perception of God in that sense, is my suggestion.
Proposal. Yeah. I was actually trying to do what you're saying, was like, I was like, okay, like, yeah, let me just do something. And I was like, let me just pay attention the whole time. Like, I was like, okay, I know I have a bottle of water next to me. Okay, let me look over here. Let me grab it. And I was like trying to notice like where, and it's like, and it's the same thing with the thoughts. It's like it doesn't feel like that happens anywhere specifically, right? But it must be happening, because here I just went and did it, right? Like there must be some kind of, right, but like phenomenologically, or like as a matter of a immediate experience, it's just like it's almost like because there's a certain kind of like autopilot notion to it, where it's like, because I wasn't like, thinking like part of me was like, let me just pick something to do, right? And then I just thought, oh, bottle of water, right? And then like, but I didn't really think that. I just like immediately like, just saw it, right? And that just became my focal point. And then my arm started doing what it does whenever I want to grab stuff, right? I'm not like thinking a whole lot about like, okay, make sure my arm's doing this and I have this much pressure on the, none of that. It was just like, okay. And it's almost like, it's like there's some kind of fuzzy like this, right? And like whatever it is, it pops out to me, and like it becomes salient to me. And it's like, oh, okay. And then I just start navigating through it. And if it's something I've already had a lot of experience with, I don't have to think about it. But then, so anyway, so that I think was all happening in the same space where I think my thoughts happen, in the same space where I think my emotions occur, in the same space where I think my physical sensations occur. And yeah, I mean, I don't personally, I find it very hard to uh, uh whereas like, there's another framing, right? You're saying getting in touch with nothingness, maybe getting in touch with God is one framing. And I've actually came across a Buddhist just recently who made the sense of like, or like kind of actually had this idea of, or it's not that we believe there's a God, or at least this is a Buddhist, that they believed there was a God, or there was no God. It was like they're looking at this kind of like practice and getting in touch with a certain kind of experience, and that whether they want to call that like nothingness or absolute unity, or or God, or what have you, it's like is kind of irrelevant to them, like that specific individual. Maybe it's common their tradition, but so that's I guess another way of, I think, framing this. But also as a personal commentary, like I find it very difficult to notice that space when I'm, and it might just be a personal limitation, but like whenever I'm doing something, unless it's like a very simple task where I'm actively like mindfully trying to be in that state of awareness, right, of like kind of what's going on. Like, if I was like going to grocery store and had to pick up, like had a little itemized list, and I was like, hey, did I get all this stuff, and like checking the boxes, and like, like when there's a lot more complexity to the situation, where like there's, at least for me, that takes a lot of effort. Cognitively, it's much more difficult for me to like, like imagine you're just learning how to drive, right? And like, you're learning how to drive, and then someone cuts you off. That's like, I think, radically more difficult than someone who's been driving for years, right? Someone cuts them off, and they might be in a better position to kind of reach into that space, right? Reach into that, like, reconnect with the nothingness, say. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's I think maybe a comment or concern, possibly. Maybe I'm even asking for like how does one get better at that? Because it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Connecting with detachment.
Mm.
Like that's my
Connecting with this detachment. Mm. Yeah, that's the that's
connecting
my
with
practice.
detachment.
I like that. I mean, there's no way words break down, like language breaks down around this, because you can't say anything about it. That, you know, a lot of religions say about the frame of, if they are talking about the frame of frames, they say you shouldn't say God's name. You definitely shouldn't have an image of him, because the danger is the left brain will take hold of anything and confuse it, confuse that abstraction for the thing itself. And that's the danger. So if I examine things at the level of vipassana, which is, I was taught by or I'm learning through Goenka, and he says over and over again, sensation as sensation. I don't feel the chair underneath me. I feel pressure. And it's not pressure, it's this nameless thing. As soon as I put a name on it, then it becomes a thing of the left brain.
Which is the finger
And
pointing the moon, right? It's like it's like not the
exactly.
finger. It's like it's the moon, but like
Yeah.
we can only ever use the finger to like get people's attention.
The moon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And that's, I mean, it seems like that's what we're dealing with. And so to try to practice this, I'm just trying to notice things at the level of sensation.
Hmm.
And if I notice the shape of the sensation temporally and spatially, you know, oh, it stops and it starts, then I'm automatically, I have access to what it's stopping and starting in. Like Kara, the temple that you were echoing, I wanted to ask, where, if you were to go to that temple again in that image, where is that happening?
On top of the mountain.
On top
And
of the mountain?
actually it's like, and it's like 1 in the afternoon. Of course, I can see the sun slightly tilting. It can it shines from the windows, and I can kind of already place how it looks like.
What do you
And
see?
the temple is green, and I kind of also see the outside.
And where is that image happening?
Oh, whereas visually in my head, it's like here on the forehead, but like it's like, it seems like it's outside, but I do believe it's like in that place.
But does
Yeah.
it feel like it's happening in your forehead?
No, it's seen.
So in a conventional sense, where's this conversation happening? Silver Lake, California. Okay, Karl, be more specific. It's happening at 947 Mitchell Terrain. Well, I won't say the whole address in case somebody gets a
Yes,
hold of it.
I was like, shut out all the stalkers.
I should be so lucky. I would be flattered. Nobody pays attention. The if I say it's happening in
Yes.
happening in the music room. Okay, that's more. So we'll fill it out. Fill it out. Karl, where's that happening? So it's happening in the seat, I guess. It's happening in the seat. I can feel the seat. But whether it's imaginary or a real life line of investigation, I always come to the same place when I examine it phenomenologically. It's happening in the supra-phenomenological. Like it's happening in my mind, it's happening in my awareness. Like if what's the environment? Where is that? There's nothing, there's no place it comes to. And this is a very unsatisfying answer. Because it's a left brain line of inquiry. But what it can lead me to is wonder. And which is what Vervaeke says is the most important thing, is to say what's happening, as opposed to, like what's happening next, as opposed to what is the solution to this problem. And so it's using the attention. Earlier you asked what's the use of this. It's using how I direct my awareness in order to determine which level of my brain is getting more blood flow and influence on my experience.
Excellent.
So, Kara, I think you mentioned the term detachment, right? And and correct me if I'm wrong, so I'm going to say what I think you mean by that term, because and at least some connotations of detachment is like being emotionally detached, right? Being kind of checked out, maybe like emotionally dissociating, right? Like there's maybe even if it's really extreme, like there's like some traumatic thing that's happening, right? Someone just kind of like, kind of checking out of what their immediate experience is, right? Kind of moving somewhere else. Like their attention is just not in the moment. But I don't think that's what you meant, right? I think the kind of detachment you were describing, right, in terms of like, if someone cuts you off, right, you're trying to like, it's like uncoupling from like the narrative that just kind of pops online, and that like you're just kind of like, oh man, that guy's an asshole, and I want to like honk at him, or like I'm gonna like swear at him, roll down my window, like I'm gonna try to cut him off, get back, get even. That there's and it's always hard to say this because it's not like a disinterest in your experience. It's just not taking it quite as seriously. Is that am I in the right direction?
Like the ways of detachment you described, the closest one was emotional detachment. So I would decouple my analytical brain from emotions, because emotions are pretty powerful, and they are so high energy that anything rational would be immediately like gone. And so what I would do, the moment I would feel the blood flow rising and the need to respond, I would cut off from that experience. Just like, no, you do not pump blood that direction. Whatever emotions arise, instead rational thought. So I would be like, it's like the thing I said with clowns, let's say, raining in that direction. It's a practice of visualizing something really bizarre that is absolutely out of the context, out of the sense, out of the situation. So you would snap out of it. It's like there is something really emotional going on here, but let's just pretend over there aliens landed.
So it's like moving your attention somewhere else to kind of take
but it's a willpower. Like I know that these emotions will kind of swallow me whole, and I might make a mistake. So instead, I will have to shift my attention into something absolutely bizarre, like escape. And this, I know that people do not have that same mechanism as I do. Like I have like two different ones. Like one of them would be something absolutely ridiculously funny. And the other one would be something visually absolutely like, in Harry Potter terms, ridiculosa, like something like that. It's like absolutely bizarre. And I even remember there was this traumatic kind of event in Ukraine where war started, and like these things just were getting bombed, and I would like I could see bombs going on, and like I was absolutely shocked by all the news, and it was fear induced kind of future. The thoughts were not constructive. They were mostly kind of fear-induced visualizations of scary things that might happen. And I remember the moment I kind of imagined, let's say, soap bubbles, just like all the ruins, all the broken buildings, and then a child standing in the middle of it and like blowing soap bubbles. And the soap bubbles just float, and they're like kind of like really rainbowy and light, and they're poof, but without sound, no sound at all. And I could see the soap bubbles just all everywhere. It's not happening in reality, But what it does, it reminds me that there is something beautiful as a contrast to the horror. So when I say detachment, it's emotional detachment, and the mechanism to it would be defocusing on, like, making willing into existence a different visualization that is not physically there, but it would kind of make me it's like a protective mechanism.
Okay, I think like yeah, I actually you helped me realize I completely misunderstood you, so thank you for that. And I guess so there's an alternative, and I guess I should just make this distinction for people who aren't familiar with this. That attachment can also mean something else. This isn't to like necessarily place at value judgment on like, is this other detachment like moving your attention, right, kind of generating a different space? Is that better than this? I don't really know, but because it can be kind of confusing because in some of the like someone like Anthony DeMello, who wrote this book Ways to Love, he talks a lot about detachment, but it's not like the emotional attachment that Karl was just describing. It's more of like I'm going to like instead of trying to move my attention away from it, I'm actually just going to move my attention entirely on it. So like the spotlight of your awareness is just like, and actually I remember this happened to me a while back where I got in a really heated argument. I think I brought this up to y'all before in different conversations, but I really heated argument with someone I had been in an argument for like a really long time. And it was just like we were just like in each other's face. And there was this moment where like I think my thumb touched my index finger. And in that moment, it was just like, oh, like it reconnected me to like my physical sensation. I was like, oh, like my chest is like, really tight. Like my face is hot. Like I started to notice like very deeply like what the experience of being angry was like. And as soon as I was able to do that, it kind of like just, like it kind of just dissolved where it was like, okay, like let me just notice the physical sensation of anger. And then once I did that, I was like, oh wow, I'm not really listening to this person. Let me like actually shift and like pay attention to like what they're really saying, like not like the exact words they're using, but the things behind like the words, like where are they coming from, like what's their intention here. And it completely like shifted. Like I was able to like, we were able to kind of like de-escalate the argument. And it was just like so anyway, so that's like I think a distinction I just want to bring because I think attachment can be used in these two different ways. And yeah, so thank you for that. That'll probably be my ending statement, I guess.
Nice one.
The language.
I like that story. Well, thank you so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you for coming in and talking about the nothingness and our experiences about the nothingness. People, please check out the links below for the YouTube channel of Karl.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thanks so much, Kara, for making this possible. Yeah.
Likewise, it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, Kevin.
And I will see you in the next With or So. Bye.
You didn't mention your sponsor. So.
Oh, it's the sponsor of Line by Line.